Well, I'm super excited to be here today with Gaelynn Lea, who is an amazing violinist, an amazing writer, an amazing disability advocate too. So, Gaelynn, it's so good to be talking to you.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm glad we're doing this.
Yeah, me too. So, we're here talking because we've been working on the audiobook of your soon to be released memoir. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, my memoir is called It Wasn't Meant to Be Perfect, and it comes out in the US on April 14th, and in the UK and Ireland on the 30th of April, and then in Australia on June 16th. And it's a book mostly about, obviously it's all about my life, but through the lens of disability and music and kind of how those weave together and kind of form parallel threads throughout my life. And it was a lot of fun to work on the writing and now the audiobook, two kind of totally separate, different feeling projects.
Yeah, awesome. And, I've had the privilege of reading the book, reading the manuscript, and then hearing you personally narrate it, which has been an awesome experience. Actually, an audiobook career highlight, I reckon.
Aw, aw.
Definitely, yeah. How have you found the audiobook narrating experience? Has it been different to what you were expecting?
Yes, it has been different, but in a really good way. I really enjoyed the process. I was worried that it would just be the sound engineer, Jake, who I've worked with a bunch, and me alone, like agonizing over every line. But the way that it actually goes is you just kind of read and read, repeat a line if necessary, and then go back at the end of the chapter. And you've been really nice to work with and encouraging. So it just hasn't been very stressful. It's not like the easiest thing I've ever done, but it certainly was not unenjoyable. I had fun.
Yeah.
It feels real now. Like I'm excited to hear what they do with all the many hours of
Yeah,
recording.
definitely.
Yeah.
And to put it in context for people watching, we've been in the studio. This is our eighth day or your eighth night in the studio. And you've been kind of doing big blocks of time, usually about 4 hours, which is a lot of time to be talking pretty much non-stop. And you've done an amazing job at it.
Oh.
So, did you have any particular highlights from the narration process, and have you found any particular challenges?
For the highlights, I would say there were a few stories in general where I really visually in my mind was seeing them play out. And so narrating it was really fun because I felt like I was there, kind of. It was a good feeling. So that was probably the highlights. And then the music, we did a few cues where there will be music underneath, and hearing it with, he would play it into the headphones and reading it over the music. That was pretty fun. In terms of what was hard is, my brain hurt at the end of every single session because I've never focused on diction so much in my entire life. That was ridiculous. And then because I was talking, my neck and my jaw at night were really sore, but by the next morning they were always fine. But yeah, it was a lot. It's a lot. You never think, oh, I'm just sitting there talking, but it's a lot of thinking also. So that was a surprise.
That's right. You're working hard, you're using your voice, but the cogs are constantly turning because you're constantly thinking about what you've got to say next and how you've got to say it.
That was the other, maybe not hardship, but you do get emotional when you're back in those
Yeah.
stories. And then you're like, oh no, I'm actually crying. What?
Yeah.
And so that was weird. I knew that might happen because when I was writing, I would cry
Yeah.
sometimes. And so there's these danger zones where you wonder if that's going to happen. And it totally did. And that was weird.
It did happen.
Yeah, but it is what it is. That's good, I think. Yeah.
It's absolutely good. You just took your time and breathed. And I think it's actually a great thing for listeners to be able to hear the emotion come through and the fact that what you're saying is really meaningful to you.
Yeah.
And there were some very meaningful passages in that book. There are some very meaningful passages. You also gave us lots of hilarious on-the-spot songs that you made up. Did you notice that? Did you know you did that all along the way?
It's a habit of mine. I like to say it's because I'm a songwriter, but they're all real bad. So I'm singing. They're not. They're just spontaneous ditties or whatever.
Oh, they were very funny. Speaking of music, this audiobook is not just spoken word. Tell us what else it has.
Well, I'm really excited because, and this wasn't my idea, actually. This was the Hachette audiobook team was like, we really think this should be almost like multi-sensory. We really want a lot of multi-layered, I guess it's all the same sense of hearing, right? But they wanted a lot of music. And I don't think having never really thought about what it would be like to record an audiobook, I hadn't really even thought about the idea of adding music, but it made sense. So I went through the manuscript a couple months ago and before this session and kind of listened or read the book a lot, in my head and thought, where could music go? And then I went back and picked out specific like moments from my whole catalog. And what was cool about it was the earlier chapters were earlier recordings. It just worked out that way naturally. And then as the book kind of progressed, it got into later music. And when it ends on Macbeth, there's some music from Macbeth. So it feels really organic, I guess, because it really fits. So it's fun. A lot of it's chapter transitions, music kind of under some of the text occasionally, and just making it feel like a full experience. So I'm really pumped, and I'm really grateful my bandmates are cool with the idea of including these little snippets and just having it be a full immersive kind of experience. So I'm pumped. It feels very different than the book because of that, In the writing of the book, I never once thought about what song would play here, and so it was really fun. And I sang. I mean, you know that. Obviously, you were there. There were some parts where I sing the lyrics, and that's pretty fun too. So hopefully, people who are familiar with my songs, or even people who aren't, will kind of really get the behind the scenes of how they were made and where they came from and stuff. So it was fun to include that much music.
So speaking of the music though, not this morning, it's this evening for you, it's this morning for me. You were recording some violin. Tell us about the space where you are right now that you are recording in.
I like to call this the Loot Factory. The engineer that I've worked with since my very first album, Jake Larson, he did the Macbeth soundtrack with me, and he did a Christmas album and my very first album. He works at this really cool building that builds medieval instruments and then winds gut strings for these medieval instruments and modern instruments too. And so when we record, we just come here and he kind of sets up this portable studio, and it's just it's weirdly inspiring to be around half-created instruments and all the wood and just all the random tools. They could build a spaceship in here, I think, if they wanted to. There's a lot of stuff. So, so we recorded the book here, and I was really glad that he was willing to do that because it's a comfortable place to be, and it's just a neat vibe. As you can see, there's like an endless amount of things to discover in this space.
Absolutely. So people, when they get to read or listen to your book and they hear about the Loot Factory, this is what you're talking about.
Yeah. It's kind of fun that we got to do it in this room. Yeah.
Totally. And Jake was awesome to work with, so shout out to Jake. It was really great to have him managing everything, all the audio stuff.
Yeah.
Audio stuff is a very technical term, obviously.
We're both really technical, right? You and me. Yeah, that's why Jake is here.
Exactly. I just record the hilarious outtakes, and you do the performance, and Jake does the serious stuff.
Yep.
Now, Gaelynn, what do you hope people will take away from your memoir?
Well, I kind of wrote it for a few different audiences in mind. Like, one of them is for disabled people. I want people to see themselves, or at least, parts of their experience reflected on the page in a way that doesn't feel, overly maudlin or overly inspiring, or all the word, the things that it usually gets portrayed as, just more authentic, I guess. And then I also want people who aren't disabled to learn things about the disability experience. Some of them are the hard things, like the discrimination that still exists and the barriers that still exist, but also the cool things, like the fact that having a disability and growing up disabled gives you a different life perspective that in some ways is really, really good and positive, and shapes who you are at your core, and it's like part of your identity, and it just gives you a richness in your inner world and like in the connections that you make that I think it can anyways, and that disability is probably a lot more complex and varied and nuanced than we ever really talk about in society. And I just want people to kind of reevaluate, or at least like see things from a new lens. And I want it to be fun. Like, I tried to include a lot of humor for people who, because again, disability is just a different way of being in the world. So there's still hilarious things that happen, and like it's just part of your life. And then I guess finally I wrote it for music lovers, because I am pretty obsessed with like behind the scenes tour stories of other artists, and like just what goes into the inspiration of the song. So I really wanted it to feel also like a music memoir, not just focusing on disability, because they are such both really big parts of my life. And so I hope it touches a lot of different areas for different people. And at the end of the day, I feel like it would have been a success if people feel more inspired to make sure that they're making the world as inclusive as they can, just because of the recognition that people with disabilities are a valuable part of our culture, and that we just need to start doing it. Even though we haven't, as a full culture, really embraced disability inclusion, like all the way around, like I just want to keep pushing us in that direction to keep expanding what we think is possible, and and what we prioritize and what we put money to, and like how we plan our programming and all that stuff, like just making it a bigger priority, I guess. And so hopefully this book will be a kind of, I call it a disability sneak attack. I've been thinking of it that way for a long time, because
that's awesome.
I don't want it. It's not a textbook. It's not academic. It's just my life. I'm only one person, but I'm hoping that it's like by the end you realize, oh crap, I learned a lot, and now I kind of care about it. That's the goal. So I hope that is what people get out of it, and that they can be creative at any age. Like, I really believe that creativity is all of our gifts, and we can own it at any point in our lives. So I hope they learned that too. There's a lot. Awesome. I have a lot riding on this book. Just kidding. But I really had a lot of ideas swirling around, and I hope that they landed on the page, and I feel like they did. And hopefully, with the audiobook, not everybody likes to read or can focus on a book that long, and so hopefully the audiobook is a whole nother avenue to get people.
Totally. Well, I learned heaps from your book. I learned a lot about you and your life, and I learned a lot about, the history of disability advocacy in the US and legislation that affects people with disabilities in the US. I learned about a lot of different people who I hadn't heard before who have been amazing advocates. And I'm really grateful for having been able to learn those things from your story, and then to be involved in it in this way. So I hope that the impact of your book spreads really far and wide as it can go. Aww. So it's been a real privilege, and and thanks for having a chat.
Oh, thank you. This was really fun, and it was so fun to work with you. And if anyone wants to record audiobooks, they should do it. It's really fun. You should do it. Thank you.
Cool. All right.